What's up, everybody? Justin here again to do another episode of Year in Wrestling Reloaded Part 2, 1987 Part 2. Now, there's not that much to talk about because in my first Year in Wrestling videos, I talked about a lot of 1987. I reviewed Starrcade 87. I reviewed WrestleMania 3. I reviewed Survivor Series 87. So I won't be reviewing them really. I'll talk about them a little bit, but I'm not really going to review them. If you want to hear my reviews on those events, just watch my Year in Wrestling videos from 1987 that I did in my Year in Wrestling playlist. So up first, I'll talk about two Saturday night main events that took place. One, October 3rd, 1987. It was from Hershey, Pennsylvania. So up first, we had Macho Man Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth, of course. She was always with him. Macho Man Randy Savage, he was a babyface by now. Or actually, he was a babyface, but he was just starting to get cheered as a babyface. Because this Saturday night's main event, a big moment happened in WWF history, wrestling history. Really big moment where we had the Mega Powers, the handshake. Macho Man, Hulk Hogan did the handshake, and the Mega Powers were born after the match. Because Macho Man really got beat up and got double teamed by Honky Tonk Man and the Hart Foundation. So Macho Man wins by disqualification. Defeating the Honky Tonk Man is for the Intercontinental Championship. And Honky Tonk Man won the Intercontinental title, I believe in June 87. This was October. But he defeated Ricky Steamboat to win the Intercontinental title. And I don't understand. I understand why Ricky Steamboat had to drop the title because he was having his first child, and he told Vince he wanted to go away and take some time off. So Vince said to him, fine, you can have time off, but you gotta drop the Intercontinental title, and he dropped it to the Honky Tonk Man on an episode of Superstars. I believe it was in June 87 is when Honky Tonk Man won the Intercontinental title. I could actually look it up if I could find it pretty quickly. So, Honky Tonk Man defeated Ricky Steamboat in Buffalo, New York on June 2nd, 87. And right after that, Honky Tonk Man won the title on June 2nd, 87. He would go on to hold it for a very long time until SummerSlam 88. So one of the longest reigning Intercontinental champs of all time, I believe, is a Honky Tonk Man. But The Miz is actually getting up there. With all his Intercontinental title reigns, The Miz has held the Intercontinental title for like 530 days total. So he's held the title longer than the Honky Tonk Man did, because Miz has had 8 Intercontinental title reigns. So that was sad that Ricky Steamboat had to drop the title so soon. He won it at the end of March. WrestleMania 3, he had to drop it June 2nd. But because he wanted time off. And he had to go away. Because his first son was being born. Ricky Steamboat Jr., I believe. He was wrestling in FCW. I believe he got injured. Had a severe injury or something. Ricky Steamboat's son, I believe, has stopped wrestling, sadly. The guy was pretty good of what I saw from him. So, anyways, Honky Tonk Man loses by DQ on the October 3rd Saturday Night's Main Event. Then Honky Tonk Man, Miss Elizabeth, goes in front of Macho Man. Miss Elizabeth is begging Honky Tonk Man, please don't hit him with the guitar. And then we had some domestic abuse. It wasn't real, but it still was pretty... To look back on it, it was pretty controversial. Because Honky Tonk Man grabs Elizabeth by the shoulders and throws her down. Pushes her down in the ring. Her dress, the strap from her dress actually broke. Also. Anyways, Honky Tonk Man, I'm sure he didn't push her down that hard, but it looked like he did. Because they were all in on it. Because it was a storyline. Thank God it wasn't real life. Anyways, so Honky Tonk Man bashes a guitar over Macho Man's head. It explodes. He falls down. Hart Foundation attacked Randy Savage after the match. And then Hulk Hogan, Miss Elizabeth, leaves, gets Hulk Hogan, the world champion, the top babyface in the company. Hogan, Miss Elizabeth is pulling Hogan by his arms. He comes out. He saves Randy Savage, beats down Hart Foundation. Honky Tonk Man runs off. Jimmy Hart Foundation run off. And then the Mega Powers are born and the handshake happens. That was pretty damn cool. Great moment in WWF history. So the next match was for the WWF Championship. Hulk Hogan defeated Sika. The next match, King Kong Bundy with Andre the Giant defeated Paul Orndorff in a singles match. And the main event was for the tag team titles, the Hart Foundation defending. They defeated the Young Stallions, Paul Roma and Jim Powers. Young Stallions, pretty good team. Had a pretty awesome theme song. But Paul Roma has said in an interview that I saw that Jim Powers was a drunk. He always showed up late. And Paul Roma blames him for hurting their run as a tag team because Paul Roma said Jim Powers was not reliable, showed up late a lot of times, showed up smelling like alcohol, showed up drunk, whatever. That's what Paul Roma said about Jim Powers. So Paul Roma, Jim Powers did not get along backstage in real life, but they were a pretty damn good team the time they were together. Paul Roma was much better when he got with Hercules, and they were Power and Glory. So that was Saturday night's main event from October 3rd, 87. Hart Foundation final match defeated the Young Stallions. Now, the final Saturday night's main event of 87. It happened on November 28th, 87. George the Animal Steele defeated Danny Davis, the crooked referee Danny Davis. Macho Man Randy Savage defeated Bret the Hitman Hart. They had a very good match. It was very fun to watch. It went 12 minutes. King Kong Bundy defeated Hulk Hogan by countout for the WWF Championship, so Hogan retained. In the final match, only 4 matches on the November 87 edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. Only 4 matches, a final match. Bam Bam Bigelow defeated Hercules. Pretty good edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. Basically all of them from 87 were very good. But my favorite would have to be the October 87 Saturday Night's Main Event, where the Mega Powers were born. That was very awesome, great episode. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about Starrcade 87 and Survivor Series 87. My opinion, because I grew up a WWF guy. And as a kid, the first wrestling I ever saw was WWF and Hulk Hogan on my TV screen. And then I was hooked immediately. And I still am pretty hooked as a fan. And I'm 34 years old, and I don't think I'll ever stop watching wrestling or WWE. I mean, I love the network. I have the network. I've had it since the first day that the WWE network debuted. And I love the network. I really love it. I love watching all the old shows on it, especially from the 80s. So now I'm going to talk about Starrcade. As I said, my opinion, Survivor Series 87 was better than Starrcade 87. I will admit, in the 80s, the NWA had better wrestling. Felt more real, felt hard-hitting, and they had very awesome, good wrestling in the NWA. But Starrcade 87, in my opinion, it was a very good show. But it was not as good as Survivor Series. Survivor Series, I mean, they were in a sold-out arena. They just WWF felt better. They had better production, more mainstream. Their characters, their wrestlers were larger than life, like superheroes. That's what drew me to the WWF more than the NWA. As I got older, as I got to be a teenager, when I was 18 years old, I started really watching the NWA from the 80s, and it was better wrestling than the WWF in the 80s. But the WWF was more sports entertainment, had better characters, had larger-than-life wrestlers. So anyways, in all the WrestleManias in the 80s, to me, just felt bigger than anything the NWA could do. But Starrcade 7 was a very good show. Road Warriors against Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard was one of my favorite matches. Ric Flair, Ron Garvin in a cage, that was my favorite match from Starrcade 7. I thought it was very good. It was very hard-hitting. Ric Flair, Ron Garvin beat the crap out of each other, and it was awesome to watch. They chopped the hell out of each other. I mean, back and forth, they were just smacking each other with chops. I mean, the chops that Ron Garvin delivered to Ric Flair in that cage sounded like gunshots. He was just smacking Ric Flair like, I mean, just really hard chops. I don't know how Ric Flair could take that, but he took it like a man, because he was a man. He was a Nature Boy, and Ric Flair won the World Heavyweight Championship back from Ron Garvin. Ron Garvin actually, maybe I should call him Rugged, or that was in WWF. They called him Rugged, Ronnie Garvin. Anyways, Ron Garvin won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship at a house show in Detroit, I believe in September 87. Dropped the title back to Ric Flair at Starrcade 87. And that was the absolute right decision, because Ric Flair was the NWA. He was a franchise. He should have been world champion. So, Again, Ric Flair, Ron Garvin. That cage match, Starrcade 7, so hard hitting. I loved it. Survivor Series 87, very great event. Again, all the characters, all the wrestlers, all their gimmicks. They were all great. They all had great gimmicks and characters. Talk about the main event. I mean, this Survivor Series had every single WWF talent under contract. Every superstar was on the show. They had 5 teams, 5 tag teams on each side. Babyface team, heel team. That was a huge match. Elimination match. And that was awesome. You had every team in there. Demolition, Hart Foundation, Bolsheviks, Islanders, Rougeau Brothers, the Dream Team, the British Bulldog Strike Force, Young Stallions, Killer Bees, so many teams. I will say WWF had a lot more tag teams than the NWA. A lot more. But the NWA had some great tag teams in the 80s, in 87. NWA had Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, Road Warriors, Four Horsemen, Arn and Tully. So the NWA had great teams, but WWF had more good teams. I mean, the top teams, in my opinion, in the NWA, the top 3 were Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, Road Warriors. Those were the top teams. In WWF, probably Hart Foundation, British Bulldogs, and Strike Force. In 87, at least. So, the main event of Survivor Series 87 was very enjoyable. It was history because Andre the Giant returned to pay-per-view. First time since WrestleMania 3, Andre and Hulk Hogan would meet. But they had their own teams because it was elimination. That was very cool to see Andre and Hogan in the same ring again at Survivor Series. And of course, what I remember about that main event at Survivor Series was Andre's team. Just full of super heavyweights. It was Andre, King Kong Bundy, One Man Gang, Butch Reed and Rick Rude. Just, that's a great team right there. Full of Hall of Famers. I don't know if Butch Reed and One Man Gang are Hall of Famers, but they were pretty good talents, in my opinion. And on Hulk Hogan's team, you had Paul Orndorff, Hogan, Don Morocco, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Ken Patera. I was never a fan of Ken Patera. I didn't hate the guy, but I was not a fan of him as a kid. So, again, my opinion, Survivor Series 87 was better than Starrcade. So now I'm going to give you the PWI, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, awards they gave out for 87. And then I'll be done with this part 2 of Year in Wrestling Reloaded 1987. So Wrestler of the Year in 87 was Hulk Hogan. Runner-up was Ric Flair. And in third place was Randy Savage. So the tag team of the year in 87 was the Midnight Express. The runners-up were the Hart Foundation, and the third runners-up were the Road Warriors. I think fans voted for the PWI awards, maybe the magazine, and the editors just did. I don't know. So the match of the year, I'll go to match of the year. Match of the year in 87. Of course, it had to be Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage, WrestleMania 3. It was very good, very epic. There were so many near falls, so many false finishes. It was damn awesome. I will never get tired of watching that match. Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage, I'll never get tired of seeing it. So that was the match of the year. The runner-up was the War Games, a Match Beyond match from Great American Bash 87. Feud of the year. 1987 feud of the year was the Four Horsemen versus the Superpowers and the Road Warriors. Runner-up for feud of the year was Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat. That was a very good feud, because Randy Savage took the ring bell before WrestleMania 3, I believe on an episode of Superstars, took the ring bell, went off the top rope with it onto Ricky Steamboat's throat. So then Ricky Steamboat, as a storyline, they said he crushed his larynx, or whatever that's called, in your throat. And then they had Ricky Steamboat doing physical therapy, rehab with a doctor. He couldn't talk. He was trying to talk, but he couldn't talk. That was great. Just a great storyline. And a great feud. So now to most popular wrestler. Where was I? See, I just did feud of the year. Most popular wrestler in 87 was Dusty Rhodes, won. Runner-up was Hulk Hogan, and second runner-up was Randy Savage. Third runner-up was Nikita Koloff, and Nikita was pretty damn popular in 87 when he was babyface. Most hated wrestler of the year. Most hated wrestler of the year goes to Ric Flair. Runner-up was Andre the Giant. Second runner-up was Honky Tonk Man. And third runner-up was Lex Luger. Lex Luger, you're an idiot. I never liked you. So now to see, most improved wrestler of the year. Again, these are the PWI awards, Pro Wrestling Illustrated's awards that they gave out in 87. Most improved wrestler goes to Kurt Hennig. Runner-up was Al Perez. He was in the NWA. He wasn't that bad, but he wasn't that good. And Al Perez, if you don't know who the guy is, later on in 1990, Al Perez would actually play the Black Scorpion a couple times, facing Sting. So, inspirational wrestler of the year went to Nikita Koloff. Runner-up was Dynamite Kid. And second runner-up was Chris Adams. Rookie of the year for 87. Rookie of the year went to Owen Hart. First runner-up was Big Bubba Rogers. Second runner-up was Shane Douglas. Third runner-up was Doug Furnas. Comeback of the year was, there was no awards for that yet in 87. So now, what is this? So there's all the awards for 87. This ends my Year in Wrestling Reloaded 1987 Part 2. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great week. Tomorrow's Friday. I might do another Year in Wrestling 1988 maybe. Yeah, 88. Because Saturday Night Main Events happened in 88. Hope you enjoyed this Year in Wrestling Reloaded 1987 Part 2. This ends me talking about 1987. My final thought on 87 in wrestling. Very good year. Great year. Great year. I mean, historic year. It was 31 years ago. That is, time flies. That 87 was actually 31 years ago. And to me, 87 was a historic year. You had the first War Games match. You had WrestleMania 3. That event was epic. Because the crowd size and Hogan body slamming Andre, Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage. That event was epic. And I said you had the first War Games. You had great wrestling in the NWA in '87. You had great stuff. And some good wrestling, but very good storylines and great stuff from WWF in '87. Primetime Wrestling had great episodes from '87 because I've watched them all on the network and they were damn entertaining. So '87 was a very good year in my opinion for pro wrestling, especially in the WWF and the NWA. I didn't watch AWA when I was a kid. I didn't watch it in '87 because I didn't have cable. I didn't have ESPN to see the AWA. So I hope you enjoyed the year in wrestling, 1987, Part 2, Reloaded. Bye for now.